Hello, everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Kistler O'Brien podcast. I'm Tyler Trumbauer with Kistler O'Brien Fire Protection, set for a brand new episode here today. An exciting conversation on tap. If you've missed any of our previous episodes, want to remind you, you can check them out on the Kistler O'Brien Fire Protection YouTube channel. You can also see our entire catalog on Apple or Spotify. That's where all of our previous episodes are at. Be sure to subscribe and download any of those past episodes if you'd like to check out some other great conversations like the one we're about to have here on this episode, as I'm excited to welcome in our guest for today, Josh Drawdy with Encore Fire Protection. Josh, welcome to the KOB podcast.
Thanks, Tyler. Good to be here, man.
Yeah, thanks for giving us a few minutes of your time and all the wisdom you're going to impart on us. So, Josh, let's just get started here quick to learn a little bit about you. You've been with Encore Fire Protection for years now, coming up on pretty much a decade of service with the Encore team. Now you're a regional director up in the Rhode Island area. Kind of what does your current role entail now at Encore?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, it's been a wild ride. I started in 2015 and I've held a lot of different positions. I used to wonder that same thing, to be honest with you. What would a regional director do? We didn't have regional directors at the time, but other organizations did. And I knew that I was probably ready for that role when I started seeing the need for the things that person would do. So prior to this role, I was a location director, which is, in other contexts, maybe called a GM or something to that effect, running a team of the operation at a specific office. And what I started to see was, between me at the office level and top leadership at the executive level, there was kind of a gap starting to form as our business got bigger and wider, to where, Tom O'Connor or other executives could only really be at any given office once every, couple weeks it got to.
Sure.
Now it's even more seldom. So what was happening is there were challenges that were facing a region, right? So I was running the Rhode Island office, and we have a Needham office. We've got a Connecticut office in Middletown. So there were neighboring offices that had similar issues that maybe didn't rise to the level of corporate issues or issues facing the entire company. And by issues, sometimes I mean opportunities, sales opportunities to go into different markets, pick up new product lines, share resources, whether it's technicians or vans or
Yep.
tools or anything to that effect. So in my new role, I'm able to kind of be the liaison between those general managers, or directors, as we call them, and kind of just help them collaborate with each other on what they need. And then also, have a bird's eye view, more so than they do, on what is out there in terms of help and best practices from other locations.
Yeah, and being that conduit to the local offices, the region, and then obviously Encore as a global as well. You have that years of experience that you can help kind of tap into as well. So, you mentioned starting, mid, 2010s there, now getting to a decade of service here at Encore. You've seen that growth arc. I mean, what's that journey been like, not only for yourself, like you said, where you started in a service ops kind of role and moved your way up into a more regional director leadership capacity, but you've seen Encore grow in leaps and bounds as well. So kind of what's that been like to be on that ride right alongside the rest of the team?
Yeah, it's been really rewarding, a little chaotic. Jeremy likes to say we're building the plane as we fly it, and I think that is pretty accurate. And you can imagine doing something like that sometimes it's scary, right? We don't, are we going to crash? Are we going to soar? We don't know, but we've kept our eyes on the prize, and uh, it's been exciting and it's been fun, and that's what's kept me here. I would never say it has been easy. There's been a lot of new stuff, a lot of change. I've been somewhat envious of companies that don't grow quite as fast just because they get the opportunity to really refine things. We're building things, deploying them, iterating on them, kind of on the fly. But the scoreboard, so to speak, kind of validates all of that, right? So we've had teams like KOB, where you're calling from, really respectable names in their own right, see what we're doing and join up, which is potentially the most validating part. But yeah, I mean, it's just been cool to see every side of the business, from, literally turning the wrenches in front of the customer now to looking at 6 to 12 month out business strategies and initiatives. So exciting, fun, interesting. Those are probably my keywords. But when I meet new people joining and when I interviewing people, I always make sure to tell them, it's going to be uncertain. It's going to be chaotic. How do you deal with conflict? How do you deal with adversity? Because when you're pushing the envelope like we try to do, you get a hefty dose of it. And if you don't find that fun, I do. And so I try to make sure anybody coming into this environment knows what they're signing up for. And if they do, I think we've built a great team around us that wouldn't be anywhere else.
Absolutely. And I think all those kind of adjectives or words you're using to kind of describe the journey and what it's like, those are not coming with any negative connotations. Those are exciting things at the same time. Like you said, maybe there are others that are, going slower, but at the same time, when you're doing what the mission is at Encore, which is, trying to build one of the best teams in the industry, and you're doing it different than any other company, like that's what brings those unique hurdles and obstacles and opportunities that you're referring to that are a little unique to Encore, even those that you may be interviewing that have years of industry experience. It's like, hey, listen, that's fine, but the way we're doing things is not like what you're used to, even though we're the same fire protection service ultimate, thing. The way we're operating, our go-to-market strategy, our people first approach, completely different. And you've seen that firsthand as that's grown and matured and iterated to now here we are with, over 30 offices in 13 states, servicing 17 states, in the United States.
No, yeah, well said, man. I mean, there have been times where we're not, the best at any given thing, but we're the best at we're the most committed to improving, right? And so I always say if we're not the best today, it's just a matter of time.
And that's because they have put together such a great team, right? That's going to find those solutions, find great ways to iterate on that. So no, I think that's an awesome call out and an honest, and real reaction to how things have been over the last 10 years. Totally, totally can understand that and see that already in my short time, being part of the Encore team overall, coming over from KOB. But like you mentioned, the things that Encore is doing is so enticing to other organizations like Kistler O'Brien, like a Fireline. I was on the Fire Away podcast. We did a crossover episode that just came out a few weeks ago. And we talked about how, the cultures were aligning and everything seemed so so attractive to larger organizations like a Fireline and a KOB, that this partnership was so seamless and so obvious, to those decision makers to be like, listen, why would we not want to get on this journey on that plane that's being built? Like you mentioned, why would we not
Right.
want to get a seat on that plane? Because it's going in the right direction. So that's super, super cool to hear from someone like you that's been on that journey kind of uniquely from the core level, right? The legacy kind of thing over the last 10 years as they've gone on that journey.
Yeah.
So kind of we've been mentioning the 10 years with Encore, but I think you have even more fire and life safety experience beyond that. Kind of so that's going 10 plus years now of your career, helping to protect people and property and kind of, advancing life safety. What drew you to this as a career? Why that passion? Why doing it for this long?
Yeah, great question. And not the most inspiring answer, to be honest. I was born into this industry. So my great grandfather founded a company in Columbia, South Carolina in 1959. He died young, and my grandfather had to take it over. So he ran it for most of its life, and then my mom took it over. So she was running it when I went to Clemson afterward, didn't know what I wanted to do, started working for her. And that honestly was just a way to pay the bills for a little while. And I was not particularly compelled to stay in the industry. I didn't think it was particularly exciting. And it was kind of more about the environment I was in. Like I just said, it was kind of handed down from, lifestyle business to lifestyle business. It was never really focused on as part of, a career opportunity. So around 20, so that was 2009 that I started there. So that would have been my first full-time fire protection gig. And I actually went into the field for most of that time. So I was there from 2009 to 2015, doing Ansel systems, kitchen suppression, portable fire extinguishers, that sort of thing. And I was actually considering, going into a different career path, maybe, engineering or teaching or something like that. And out of nowhere, my girlfriend at the time, who ended up becoming my wife, got an opportunity to move to Boston to work for an executive at her company that she was really impressed with. And so that's what we did. And we came up here in 2015. I Googled Ansel Systems Boston and found a couple companies, one of which had recently been partnered with Encore. And that's how I found my way in. And for a long time, what kept me in the industry was just the Encore culture, to be honest, which is still a huge piece of it. But fire loss actually touched my family a little over a year ago. I lost my stepfather in a house fire. And that was a really interesting moment because we realized that part of the reason why that occurred is he did not have functional smoke detectors in his house. And I realized that, and we, of course, were looking at each other saying, man, we got to check our smoke detectors. And I found out mine didn't work. And so it was a kind of like, you really got to walk the walk in this type of industry because it is the type of thing that is life or death. It's not recreational. It's not lighthearted, right? We have fun while we work, but this is something that provides value. And so now I would say it's twofold. It's the Encore culture, but also beyond Encore, I think the industry we're engaged in here is one that if we do our best in it, it has one of the most meaningful impacts, I think, to people's lives.
Yeah, and that's something that we've always said at KOB is like this is more than just a job, right? Like you go to work every day, you're protecting people and property. You're ultimately saving lives, and primarily we're doing it on a commercial basis, right? At business, locations. But the education part of it, when I'm out at events or even, trade show that's industry specific, folks come up and they're asking a lot of personal life questions.
Yep.
Hey, what should I do about this? Do I have enough extinguishers at my house? And then we see a lot of the education and knowledge gap for small office buildings too. They don't realize the type of extinguishers you need, the recurring inspections you need, the hydrostatic testing that is required for these extinguishers. They think it might be a set it and forget it. But then to simple things like smoke detectors, whether that's in a commercial property or residential, folks don't realize or forget about the checking, the operations, changing batteries on a recurring interval, and also that really, 10 years, they should be gone, right? Whether they're even somewhat operational at that
Right.
point, manufacturers are saying you need to put new ones in. I don't think many folks realize that they have quote unquote expiration dates on those as well. And they're not something that you should be putting off on your home improvement list or upkeep and maintenance checklist. That should be something that should be at the top and never overlooked. So,
Yeah.
quite the story there, Josh. But like unfortunately, not many have it as certain kind of tragic loss like you, but so many folks I talk to that work in this industry have some type of deep rooted personal reason for why they do it. And they do it not just on the job for Encore, they do it, they're volunteer firefighters, they're
Right.
EMTs, they're EMS volunteers, anything they can to help advance life safety in their personal lives as well. I mean, it's their lives. And that's something that, like you said, kind of then gives back to the Encore culture because these are people that are not just speaking it from 9 to 5. These are people that are living it 24/7. And those type of people on the Encore team is what sets Encore, I think, to that next level compared to others in the industry.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the culture of, continuously improving and looking out for each other. I mean, it's not, it's rare, but it's not completely novel to Encore. But doing that in the context of what you just said, the meaningful industry of fire and life safety, I think supercharges it.
Sure. Now, we've kind of talked about this earlier, just touching on it here. So let's just kind of have this kind of more direct discussion about working at Encore. I think if you go to the careers page of the EncoreFireProtection.com website right now, there's a lot of open positions across all
Oh,
those
yeah.
offices and states we talked about a few minutes ago. I'm sure in your region, there's some key open positions and many others as well. So as someone that has worked for Encore for 10 years, been in life safety, near going on 2 full decades now, what would you say to somebody that wants to make Encore their employer of choice, kind of whether they're in the industry now or looking for a change in their career to maybe get started in the fire protection industry?
Yeah, I would say nothing worth having comes easy, right? This is not the type of place, I hear a lot of people say that they want to get ahead and they want to accomplish great things, but what they really want is to be recognized and compensated. They don't actually want to put in the work, right? And I try to weed that out at the front end because if any entering this organization with any illusion that it's going to be all glamorous or all easy is a recipe for failure. It is a championship level team that requires a lot from each other, but it gives a lot back. And I would say for the people who fit here, there's no better place. But it's not for the faint of heart. We move fast. We are very direct and transparent. We don't, let our feelings rule the day without, checking with data and facts. And there's a lot of collaboration and communication that goes on. And, I've worked with a lot of personalities that, would prefer to do their own thing and be recognized as a one-man show. At this level of play, that's not a winning strategy. And so it requires a lot of openness. It requires a lot of checking your ego, right? And hearing the feedback from the people to the left and right of you. But I would say there's boundless opportunity. And if you approach those opportunities with that attitude, you can really change your life. And I don't just mean at work. We have a thing called Encore Fundamentals, which you may have talked about before. We do little videos and things about behaviors that we embody as our culture. And I did one time that it's called Own Your Work-Life Balance. And basically what I said was, work and life are not that separate. I mean, you're the same person, whether you're in your house or whether you're at your office. And with COVID, sometimes you're working at your house like me right now. But it's the type of thing where if you commit to the value system that we've got and then you put it to work at the challenges we're tracking down, not only would you have career success, but you become a better person. I've become a better son, a better brother, a better partner, a better man, just from having to face tough challenges and keep my eyes on the prize and not let those petty things get in the way, which is something that I think, I hope everybody's able to get out of their career.
Well said. And if anyone is interested in any of those open positions, like I said, head to the careers section of EncoreFireProtection.com. Check out those open positions. Our talent team would be happy to chat with you about the many opportunities and benefits of getting on this plane that we've talked about numerous times so far. So, Josh, let's pivot a little bit here and talk about what we do on a daily basis. The main kind of system is that I want to talk about is Suppression. Obviously, Encore is a full service fire protection company, design, installation, inspections, maintenance, testing, repair, all of the above, with 24/7 emergency service available at all the office locations. But Suppression in particular, and I feel like that's one of the most broad terms in the industry, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there's so many systems and equipment that can fall under that umbrella. But one that was newer to me about a year ago was these gas station suppression systems. So in Pennsylvania, not really a thing. I don't think many municipalities in the Commonwealth of PA require them. But then you go to other places, up in the New England area in particular, you see them on every corner gas station mainly. And I've seen videos of them going off and saving lives and where they would really be a key component. You would think, why would they not be everywhere? So let's just start there with those. Like gas station suppression, something that I think we do a decent amount of at Encore, especially in our core region in New England. Kind of fill me in a little bit more about those, because that's probably something I don't know very much about.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny, you kind of get exposed to the level of misinformation in the news when you see one of these go off, because the comment section gets filled with people saying things that acting as if they're fact. And I go in and I'm just reading like, that's not true. That's not true. But I actually, I just said I moved from South Carolina where these things also don't exist. So when I moved up here, I was getting gas one day and I looked up and I was like, that looks like a fire system. Having no idea what a huge part of my life that they would become. So yeah, New England is the main place where these exist. They also are in Oregon and a couple of cities in Michigan that I'm aware of, and little jurisdictions here and there probably that I'm not naming. But basically, they're pre-engineered systems. They're not that different from a spray booth dry chemical system. They use dry chemical powder, like a fire extinguisher would, a typical um, ABC extinguisher. Some of them use BC, sodium bicarbonate, but it's a dry agent. The big difference about these systems is one, they're very large. So that's probably the first thing that catches your eye. The cylinders are, most of them are 80 plus pounds.
Yeah.
They're very heavy. It's kind of a big operation to recharge or install these things. And then the other oddity or uniqueness in the fire protection world, especially pre-engineered suppression, is that they are electric. So they utilize thermal detectors. Kidde detectifiers typically. Pyrochem even buys theirs from Kidde. But yeah, so they are installed at self-service stations. If it's full serve, they're not required, at least in Massachusetts. So that's the primary application of them. And really where they catch people's attention is when they discharge. So you asked the question, why don't they have them everywhere? They are expensive to maintain and install. And they, as you know, if your listeners are familiar with our industry, they will probably be familiar with the fact that there's a range of technical proficiency from service providers. And in the gas station world, being that those are electric systems, what that results in is neglected electrical components a lot of the time. What that results in is water penetration and false discharges. So I think there are a lot of differences of opinion in the insurance industry about what the best way to protect the property and lives are. But at the end of the day, it comes down to a cost benefit. And I think some people within that world would say, the claims we pay out to fire damage and injuries, maybe would offset that cost. Other people disagree. So I think a lot of requirements come down to that. I've heard about, there's a House resolution that's been going around for years about whether we should put fire suppression in school buses, sprinklers in new home builds. So, it's about balancing risk with cost, right? But we certainly believe in them in our region, and we make sure to focus on those electrical components because most suppression technicians that work on those type of systems are less familiar with that, but that tends to be the most common reason why you have a false discharge. And, we were talking earlier about home smoke detectors and things like that. It's unfortunate that it takes a loss or a damage, event for people to realize that this equipment is not a nuisance, right? And so I personally think we as fire protection professionals, one of the best things we can do for public safety is prevent the situations where these systems become a nuisance, right? We got to take it really seriously when you have a fire alarm panel that's false alarming, when you have a suppression system that's discharging, because it leaves the end user with the feeling that this thing is more trouble than it's worth. Because if you let those things be more common than fire loss, which they almost always are, fortunately, that's the impression people get. So gas station suppression systems in our region have saved a lot of people, a lot of damage, but they've also cost people a lot of money. So it's
Yeah.
a somewhat controversial product line.
I feel like the budget and the cost is something that is a pushback from a lot of customers that have those pre-engineered systems that are in unique areas. I think about off-road vehicle suppression, something that Kistler O'Brien does a lot of, that folks, in landfills or quarries, and they have these big equipment, CNC machine suppression systems, right? Those are, you want to protect your investment there. Yes, it's an additional expense, but imagine what would happen with loss of revenue because you have downtime, you have all those things if you have the equipment damaged, and then not to mention the priceless stuff, which is the loss of life potentially. You got to protect your people that are utilizing that machinery as well. That's something that you always get, that kind of like, wow, the cost, the price tag, the sticker shock. But these are complex systems, like you said, that need to be as such so that they work in these scenarios. And it's something that you want to make sure you mind your P's and Q's at the beginning so that you never have to worry about that loss, that setback that now makes you a serious person about fire protection. Take it serious from the beginning and hope that you never have to worry about it down the stream by taking care of the proper installation and inspection and maintenance along the way.
Yeah, right. And funny enough, those two industries you just said, for the most part, are actually not required, right? So those customers are buying that product because they understand the value. And most CNC operators or heavy equipment operators who have done it long enough have seen a fire loss. They've seen a machine tire or catch pan go up. They've seen a CNC machine overheat and catch up the oil. And when you have people with those experiences, yeah, the value is much easier to spot right off the bat.
Sure. Yeah. When they get that loss, it changes their mindset completely. But you were talking about the gas stations earlier and how some folks don't think about it. It's in unique places. That kind of triggered my memory of something that kind of popped up that was new about maybe 18 months ago, 2 years ago, at least to us in PA, was trash truck suppression systems that on those trash trucks, especially in residential areas, they have those automatic arms now, right, that are going and picking up a dumpster or even your residential trash receptacle and putting it into the dumpster there on the back of the truck. Some of that trash, the debris, gets in between into the engine area. It can heat up. That could become a problem. And like we said, it's usually they don't have people. Not many have people on the back of the trucks anymore, so they're not seeing it. It's a whole different operation, and that's a whole other avenue now where the proper protection is really recommended because it's heavy machinery. It's, people and property that are in the cab that you want to protect as well. I don't know if you're seeing that up in New England as well. Maybe you guys were ahead of the curve on it. It's just making its way down to PA. But that's something that we had a lot of conversations with customers. I remember about 2 years ago when that really broke onto the scene when some of the manufacturers were bubbling up these concerns that they've seen in other pockets of the country.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one actually. That's an interesting one. Like I said, the one I've been tracking for years is just school buses because
Yep.
there's a really good product that we install there, that we would love to see more of. But yeah, I mean, there's always something new and exciting. I mean, it's a whole wormhole to get into. We probably don't have time for, but like lithium ion battery fires
Yep.
comes to mind. That's a big one that right now with the advent of AI and things running on batteries and things like that, that's going to become more and more relevant. And I'm not sure we have a clear solution for it. So this industry, as we say this is just a learning industry all the time, which is one of the things that jives well with our culture here.
Yep, 100%. And you're right. We had a great lithium ion battery discussion with our friends over at Amorex a couple episodes ago. So I
Very
encourage our
cool.
viewers and listeners to check in on that as they talk about the latest trends in the industry related to probably the number one hot button topic in the industry right now, or at least top two or three. So, Josh, quickly before we wrap up here, just want to pivot to maybe a simpler, more popular suppression, item that we have in the industry: fire extinguishers, right? Your basic ones, you see them all the time when you're out in public, you go into an office building, they're all everywhere, right? But I feel like a lot of smaller businesses are unaware, in the differences. Can I just, if I'm opening up a small shop, can I just buy them from Home Depot, with the plastic nozzle and just put it up there and I'm good forever until I realize I got to dust it one day and I realize I lost pressure? Like, kind of, do you see a lot of that education gap as well? Because what I'll say too is I've been seeing a lot of inbound inquiries recently, 6, 8, 12 months, of folks that are saying, oh, my insurance agent or company is now asking me to have extinguishers that are refillable, that can be tagged and inspected. So that seems to be a big push from the industry side now that is providing that education to small businesses that maybe had an office or brick and mortar location for years and didn't have the proper fire protection equipment in place.
Yeah, from my time in the field, I saw firsthand the level of or lack of education, because people would ask me questions as I was tagging extinguishers, like, "Are you going to shoot that off next to my desk?" And I'm like, that'd be pretty unwise.
Yeah.
Or they would straight up tell me, if we have a fire in here, I'm just going to run. I don't know how to use that thing anyway. And that's really concerning. So throughout my career, I have made a point to offer, in so much as I can get people to take me up on it, fire extinguisher at work classes, right? Which is a big thing for a lot of companies in our industry. It is required by OSHA, although the enforcement of that is, maybe not super strong. But if somebody comes asking, you do need to have documentation that you've trained your employees, and you don't want people in your building saying, "I'm just going to run." So when I do those trainings, one of the first things I start with, to your point about the different kinds of extinguishers, is start with fire science, right? Because that's what really drives what we're using to put fires out. We start with the fire triangle, heat, fuel, oxygen, right? And all fire extinguishers work to remove one of those, but which they remove is different depending on what the hazard is, what is potentially the fuel. For example, like in a data center, right? You want to be cognizant of what is actually burning. So yeah, I mean, the best we can do, I think, is provide an easily accessible quality training program and then educate our customers about it. We do some of those at no cost to certain organizations, and we bring people in when we can to train them. So yeah, I think it is a big thing. A vast majority of the extinguishers people see are going to be the red ABCs.
Mhm.
And fortunately, those are pretty versatile. But if you find yourself in a facility that's got some sort of specialization, which could be as simple as a kitchen with a grease fire potential, or a data room where a powder extinguisher could do more damage than good. You really need to know which extinguisher is appropriate. And so signage in your facility is a big part of that as well. But it's just about preparedness and awareness. And if people focus on those two things, it's not hard to achieve. But to your point about buying an extinguisher at a big box store and just hanging it on the wall for years and years and years, I wouldn't call that focusing on preparedness and awareness, right? So it's like so many other safety things. It's not rocket science. It's just a matter of being cognizant and taking a moment to look around and think through what am I really dealing with and what's possible, and then taking some actions to prepare. So Encore's here to be a partner in any way to do that, and hopefully those classes that we have created can prepare somebody better for the unforeseen.
Yep. And Kistler O'Brien, long before their partnership with Encore, has offered fire safety training. They have a digital simulator, can do a classroom,
Yeah.
outdoor live burn. Encore, much of the same similar offerings that, like you said, is an OSHA requirement. Oftentimes, insurance companies offer discounts too on
Yep.
premiums if you can verify that your team in your employee base has gone through said trainings and curriculum. Because again, that just helps. That preparedness makes the insurance provider also a little bit more comfortable, with the protection of the people and the property there as well. So, like you said, Josh, we could go on and on with the nuances, but ultimately, I think the big takeaway is the more importance and investigation and learning anyone does on the front end is going to help you long term, whether that's big expenses like a gas station system or a CNC machine suppression system, or something on the smaller side like a proper fire extinguisher that's the right class, that's the right size for what your property needs. Ultimately, it just starts at the beginning. So take that, at the beginning. And a lot of folks, you don't need to do that education yourself. I mean, you could partner with Encore, and our team is going to come out, do a site survey. They can let you know where you need, what you need, and get you the quotes, and to kind of just prepare for that, not just, from a mindset, but also budgetary for your recurring inspections and testing and maintenance that are required by the NFPA and your local AHJs. So, I mean, that's why companies like Encore are here, is to be that life safety partner, for businesses, so that, you could trust us to take care of that for you.
Absolutely. That's the word, Tyler. Partner rather than vendor, right? We want to
Yeah.
help.
100%. And Josh, you've been a huge help today to me and to the audience as well, kind of shedding some light on a lot of different things, notably, the journey with you with Encore, and kind of suppression and everything that entails in the industry. So Josh, really appreciate your time today. Thank you so much for giving us a few minutes here on the KOB podcast.
Yeah, thank you. It was great talking to you, Tyler. Keep killing it, man.
Appreciate it. And thank you to our audience for tuning in for this episode. Again, if you missed any of our previous episodes, you can check out the video versions on the Kistler O'Brien Fire Protection YouTube channel, and check out all of our audio versions on Apple or Spotify. Until next time, I'm Tyler Trumbauer with Kistler O'Brien Fire Protection.